Hello and welcome back to another EDH deck design video. Today I'm going to be showing my other Akroma Angel of Fury deck. Previously I had uploaded an experimental one where I was playing with Devotion. This one is my good one. This is mostly classified as a battle cruiser deck. Just big mana into big creatures, beat face. This works very well with Akroma because she herself is a very hard to deal with general. So if you're unfamiliar with this shifted version of the white Akroma, she is 8 mana, 5 red for a 6/6 flyer. The really cool thing on her, she cannot be countered, and she is both pro blue and white. So she is very hard to deal with from a controller, like against a control. They cannot tuck her. There are 3 things in the deck, in like the entire, I think there's 4 things in the whole game that can actually tuck her. She can get Chaos Warped, Terminus, Hollowed Burial, and I think that Proteus Staff can get her too. But I mean, she's incredibly hard to target. She also has Flying, Trample, and Fire Breathing. So she's very easy to get like a very quick kill on an opponent. The Morph mechanic, while it is something that it could be functional and feasible to play with, it's not usually a smart idea. You can cast her face down for 3 and then pay 5 to flip her. So you could get her out very early. The problem, although, is doing that from the command zone kind of broadcasts what you're doing, and she's susceptible as a 2/2. But having a giant beater like this with Fire Breathing, usually if she is allowed to actually have 1 combat step, I've set the deck up so that 1 combat step may be all it takes to kill you. But as a battle cruiser deck, she's the best at the helm. Well, yeah, I do have a few extra Akromas. I've been collecting them for a while, just different artworks from different people who've made the artworks, and there's tokens and whatnot. Let's stick her over here. So this is kind of somewhat similar to a lot of my other mono red decks posted. I just have lots of good creatures, lots of ways of getting them up there. Magus the Moon is perfect for what the deck wants to do. It wants to disrupt while I get my mana online to get Akroma out. He can, of course, swing, but I rarely do. Same with Vishino Heretic. He's really good at early disruption and destroying people's artifact ramp. He has a nice butt for defense. There is a sword complement in here, so Prophetic Flamespeaker is a fantastic, very overwhelming card with swords, especially if I got the Feast and Famine on him so I can untap my lands and do stuff mid-combat. Pilgrim's Eye, while not a very powerful card, it tends to be something that can swing with a sword, and it gets me a land to help me excel, or make land drops. Burnished Heart may not last. I've been thinking about removing him because he is usually dealt with against the group I play this against. But he's potentially there to help me get the mana online for Akroma. Same with Sad Robot. Storm Breath, my favorite 2 dragons are Storm Breath and Thundermaw. Both of these have haste, and putting swords on them is fantastic. Godo is there just to go get me the sword that's pro your deck. I'm not going to cheese around with any kind of untap shenanigans or combos. Literally, it's just to beat your face. I'm going to get the perfect equipment to do so. Inferno, he's also, don't forget, there's some equipment that gives creatures vigilance, so I can attack with them as well. Because while he untaps Jessamurei, he does grant an additional combat phase. One of my favorite equipments to get with her is the Sword of Vengeance, because it gives her vigilance and all the white Akroma's abilities. So that on her and Godo is fantastic. Inferno Titan is just your classic red beater, one of the best beaters red gets. Horde Smelter is something new I'm playing with. Another way of destroying artifacts, and he himself gets bigger. I like the flying body. A lot of the offensive creatures in the deck have flying. Duplicant's really good spot removal. Wormquill's there, again, just to be kind of late game bomb, any time of the game bomb, really. And Cozy's there just because I have lots of ways of making lots of mana in the deck, so he will most likely land. Let's go on to the spell package. There's actually quite a bit of spells in this deck. Well, I guess not so many. Vandal Blast is one of the best red artifact spell removals there is, because I can hit all that I do not control, and the 1 mana targeting someone's Soul Ring early game before they can make use of it is also very good as well. Into the Core is instant for 2. I can knock 2 equipment off an attacking creature. I like exiling things. As I said, I really like exiling things. This is one of my favorite spells. There's a few spells that do the same thing. I usually run in my other decks. The Yamabushi's Flame, and the Annihilating Fire. This one's the best out of the three because it also has a cannot be regenerate clause. The spell's a little overcosted for what it does. People would probably just prefer to run Lightning Bolt, but I like the exile effect. Anger of the Gods, same thing. Not a lot of creatures in my deck have low toughness, so this tends to do a very good wipe effect. An X spell I can hit a player with, or a creature, and the creature dies is exiled. Same thing. Same thing. This one also has a Hellbent effect, which almost rarely happens, where it just can't be prevented. Typical board wipe in mono red. I do have a fair number of non-basics. Usually what this does is it sets the opponent way back enough for me to definitely stabilize and get online. One of the best spells I would ever suggest in red is Reiterate. Fork effects are nice. Being able to buy it back and do it more than once if you have lots of mana is even better. Savage Beating, if you see my other videos that have red, this is typically a game-ending card. If you've never played with Savage Beating, I definitely suggest giving it a try at least once, because if this resolves, even if you can't entwine it, the effect is usually just devastating to the opponent. I like my Active Treason effects. Word of Sizing lets me get anything. I could steal your equipment to equip it for a turn. I could steal your Sinkhole or your Strip Mine to get someone else's land. I could take your Planeswalker and get the emblem. Instant Speed means I can do that on someone else's turn. Same thing here. This is just for creatures, but I can entwine it and fling it at somebody. Got the Wheel effects. Not a whole bunch of draw on this deck. I actually took the Wheel of Fate out, so I just got one Wheel of Fortune and the one. I've actually been thinking about taking Reforge out too. Sometimes I'm tempted to do the Miracle when it may not be the best time to do the Miracle. And then sometimes I don't want to hold on to my hand, and for 5 mana it's not nearly as good as Wheel of Fortune. And our last spell in the deck is just your general board wipe. I do have lots of artifacts and lots of equipment and some artifact creatures, so this usually hits me very little, but I can then deal with people's enchantments I can't deal with. Talking about enchantments, I have a total of 3 in the deck. Going with the Magus of the Moon is the Blood Moon. I mean, it's just a generally good effect, especially against 3-color decks or more. Price of Glory is really good. I don't have a lot of stuff I want to do on your turn. I'm essentially just trying to get a giant fire-breathing general out, so I'm not going to have a lot of mana up anyways. So this kind of hurts any kind of control player. They usually have to deal with this before they can actually do something like counterspell effectively. And Gratuitous Violence is just a win condition with Akroma. I can cast Akroma, or if this is out, when I declare with Akroma, it's usually just a game-ending swing. It's a one-sided Wrath, or a Furnace of Wrath effect. But as I said, there's lots of artifacts. We'll go through the equipment first. Skull Clamp is there. I don't really have any way of busting Skull Clamp in this deck. Like, the Shard Phoenix would be kind of fun with it. But, I mean, it's good draw, and I will most likely have my creatures dealt with anyways. So it's just going to at least replace itself once. As I said, I have a sword package in the deck. These two are placeholders, because I eventually hope that they print the rest of these in Judge. If they don't, I'm going to be a little pissed. But my favorite sword, well, I like Feast and Famine is always my favorite, but my favorite sword with Akroma is Sword of Vengeance. Thematically, this is the White Akroma sword, if you look at the artwork. But the abilities of giving her essentially all Akroma's abilities, the haste, the trample was already there already, but the vigilance and the first strike, that just makes this angel, this Akroma, just infinitely better. Batterskull is there to keep me in the game. Again, giving Akroma Vigilance is funny, but it also makes her a 10 body as well. Do need to manipulate the top of my deck and shuffle some things away. Still not playing fetch lands, and I still have a pretty bad opinion of top personally. But I mean, it's in a deck that I kind of want to win with consistently. Same thing, Torpor Orb only shuts down my Sad Robot and my Duplicant. Really, that's more than enough. Like, the devastating effects of some people's cards make this more than enough of a reason to run. And then onto the ramp. Wayfarer's Bauble's there to get me a land. Again, this is really good with the Valakut, because I can hold up 2 mana and then shock something. There's the Soul Ring. Mind Stone is good because it replaces itself. And the Fire Diamond I just like. Thrawn Dynamo is something I don't normally run in a whole bunch of decks, because my decks are either mana intensive color requirement, or I'm doing some stupid shenanigans that require like one specific color, like Fire Breathing. But she is an 8 mana costing general. So this is there at least to help me get my other artifacts online and equipment. Expedition map is here just to get me the Valakut or the train generator, or maybe just one of my very few non-basics. Kite is kind of a draw mechanic where I can filter out more non-basics. Wait, yeah, basics, sorry. The cool thing, Kite, I like reiterating this because some people just don't recognize the potential there. When you put something like this and a Phyrexian Arena right next to each other, the obvious target to destroy if someone has one random destroy spell is going to be the Phyrexian Arena, because it's free and it just nets you cards, not just basics. This really does not look like a big effect, but paying 3 every single turn to get an extra card, specifically a land, you will always make your land drops then, so you can then start eventually paying more for it. This tends to be a very quick deck. Like as soon as I land a mana doubler, I'm usually about to win. So something like this doesn't always help, but at the same time, when I take this to multiplayer, this is a card that I love seeing in my opening hand. Sculpting Steel is essentially the 4th gauntlet. Because I'm running all the gauntlet effects in here, I will almost exclusively hold on to this until I land one of these, because the doubling effects doubles my mana for her. Not only can I land her faster, but I can double her fire breathing. Because of that, it usually means that she becomes a one-hit kill machine. But as I said, like the Sword of Vengeance, I like more thematic things. Again, the Vigilance and the First Strike, and everything that goes on the white Akroma is on this, so giving it to the red Akroma makes for a very busted Akroma. This also helps on my other creatures as well. And then I do have my ghetto card draw mechanics, the Memory Jar, the Mind's Eye, and the Staff and End. I usually try to hold on to Memory Jar until I have a Gauntlet effect out, so I can play the entire hand. But then these guys are just really good no matter point of the game. For walkers, I am running 3 in this deck. I'm giving Sharkin a test, a thorough test here. I'm not too impressed with him so far. I like the idea of swinging, like just landing a Planeswalker and having a flyer, like a dragon to swing in with a sword if I need a sword trigger. And the removal for 4 damage, it's not super good, because he just about kills himself if I need to cast it. So I'm essentially paying 5 mana for a removal spell that will just die. But I mean, the potential body and the emblem, I love Grafted Skullcap. So the potential emblem there is nifty as well, because usually by the time I land him, I could probably dump the rest of my hand. Koth will always be my favorite Planeswalker in Mono Red, because the ramp effect is much better than his emblem. If you're doing 1v1 and you can protect him, yeah, go for the emblem because you'll win. But I mean, these other effects, the ramping effect is really good, especially with an Akroma. And I'm running Karn here because it's Karn and I like exiling things. There are quite a few lands in this deck. I think I'm running 38 or 9. So I got some of the value lands, essentially ways of getting more mana fast. So there's the Temple, and this is out of order. Ancient Tomb and Temple both tap to give me 2. Temple has a requirement of 5 lands. This one just hurts me. But then the Ink Moth is there again because I'm running equipment. Putting a sword on a man land is great. Normally I would maybe suggest running something like the one that becomes a 2/1 First Strike. But I like flying and evasion. The Infect may never ever become a thing, but it still triggers a sword trigger. But then my favorites are the Valakut Train Generator, Free Shocks essentially, or Lightning Bolts essentially, and this one also helps you ramp. This is a new one that again it's more like a ramp effect, where I like the Brings Bright Hearth with this, but I don't have that in this deck. But this essentially replaces itself and gets another land, so it's sometimes good to hold up with the Valakut if need be. Hall is there just to give Akroma haste, and Flamekin Village is there just to give Akroma haste. And then every other land in here is the silly Zendikar ones I've been collecting for God knows how long. And again, sometimes I don't like playing this against specific groups because I get unwanted attention for these, but at the same time, these are not nearly as expensive as some people really think them are. Like, websites will grossly overprice these. Nah. But that is the current deck for Akroma. Again, the goal of the deck is literally just to ramp into an Akroma and smack your face. Against specific decks, this is not very efficient, because against like a black stacks deck or a attrition deck, they're just going to make me sack her. Against green decks, they can usually just overwhelm me before I land her or destroy my artifacts. But I mean, one of the most, I think the most common color in EDH is blue. And having your general be uncounterable and protection from blue and white, meaning she can't get Path to Exiled or Swords to Plowshared, or Condemned, or just about anything like that. No enchantments can get her, nothing like that. You can't lock her down. And she just becomes a very aggressive and very powerful beater. So, for example, if I have, I think the quickest I've ever gotten her online was turn 3. Because I had a turn 1 Soul Ring, and in turn 2 I landed the Gauntlet of Might, the one that just does it for red. The Alpha Beta Collector's Edition crap one I have there. But that enabled a turn 3 Akroma. That doesn't happen very often. I would love to see that happen more often, but it doesn't. But having that out that fast, she obviously has a 6 power body, but even just +1 from Fire Breathing, just giving her +1 boost means she's a 3-hit kill. Doing untap tricks, or doubling my mana, or multiple combat steps, or double strike. I used to have the, whatever that red enchantment is that gave all my creatures double strike in here, but I'd rather have the Gratuitous Violence, to be honest. Yeah, she can become very overwhelming and very quick. Usually how this deck pans out is within the first 7 or so turns, I've had some kind of aggressive, nasty creature or Akroma beating face. I've either killed someone or my artifacts have all been destroyed. And then I'm set back until I actually make the land drops to recast. That's, yeah, actually, honestly, just how every single game goes. I either win very, very quick and early, or I am severely set back until I am using my basic lands to cast my big spells. But that's kind of the average, I guess, for Battlecruiser style decks. If you have any interest in that type of deck, and you like mono red, I would suggest Akroma. She is probably the best legendary for that style. If you're going to include more equipment, go for Godo, of course, but again, it depends on the number of players in your group. This is very good for 1v1, maybe up to 3 opponents. If you have a larger table, 3 to 5 opponents, I would not try it because they'll just destroy whatever support you got out for her. Oh yeah, Akroma is one of my favorite generals to run. My first was always Jessica, second I think was Latoya. I did not actually make Akroma because I was afraid of her mana cost for a very long time. But after I started running her and the double combat effects, this deck actually used to be full of double combat spells. Like the enchantment to do it, the spell that has flashback that I can get double combats. Kind of took those out for favor of just a better board state. But I mean, if you ever like that game, so I would definitely suggest her. Don't be afraid of that mana cost. Just don't put a massive amount of like humongously overcosted things in your deck. Build it up to get her out, or at least be effective without her. Then you actually have a pretty stout deck. But any comments, ideas? This is one of those decks that it's not quite one of my Gucci decks. It's getting up there. I still like my Jessica deck better, although this deck is far more expensive. Yeah, if you have any ideas, this is being recorded around a little bit after New Year's of 2015. But any ideas, new card selections, comments, ideas, always welcome. Definitely let me know.